All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ben Starkey. I'm the product manager for safety services here at Brady. Your speaker for today is going to be Tony Mares, my teammate, the product manager for Brady's lockout tagout software. He's going to be talking about the power of lockout tagout software today. So I will turn it over to Tony. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Ben. Thanks everyone again for joining the November session. We've had a few of these in previous months, but as Ben mentioned, we're going to cover how lockout tagout and the software can both work together to help improve efficiencies at your guys' facilities. I've been with Brady for coming up on 8 years now, and am in charge of our safety software platform. So we have two of them, Link 360 and Link 360 Process Plus. So we'll kind of talk about some of those similarities and differences, and also just how software can ultimately help you guys out in the field as you're completing your day-to-day jobs. As we're going through this, Ben will also be fielding questions in the chat. So if you see something on a slide, please feel free to ask them. And then there's also a questions section at the end. So either hold your questions or ask them throughout. If you don't want to lose it on top of your head, just make sure you put it in there and Ben will answer as we're moving through. So a quick agenda on what we're going to be covering today is a little bit about Brady, some common challenges we're seeing as we go out into the field, talk to different customers, learn about each of their lockout solutions, and everybody's going to be at different stages, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but we'll go over some of those common challenges, what goes into building an effective program, and then near the end, we'll start talking about how software can help streamline some of those different processes, whether it's just getting rid of the paper trail, bringing things front and center to how you're doing your operation, and then a little bit about what is Brady doing to help bridge that gap between, everybody's getting used to using their mobile devices out in the field. We all have them on us. We have the apps that help streamline, whether it's something as simple as financial information or anything like that. So how do we make that easier in your day-to-day jobs then? As we look at Brady, we have a wide variety of offerings. Anything from the lockout tagout solutions, we have a field safety team that can come out on site, help write those procedures, help you get to compliance, training, and all that good stuff. Also have the padlocks devices to make sure that anything we're locking out in the field cannot potentially be re-energized prior to a machine being worked on. And then ultimately that safety software. So how we're gonna go in, improve our efficiencies, keep it standardized between procedure to procedure, site to site, and having all the information look and feel the same as we're going from procedure 1 to procedure 2. And then ultimately, how do we integrate all of these into one thing? So Brady is a one-stop shop offering everything from the lockout standpoint, but then also our printers allow us to generate the lockout tags that you might put on your lock so you know who exactly that lock belongs to. Also different pipe labelings, all that can come into play throughout Brady as we go through and talk about our solution then. Looking into OSHA's top 10 citations, year over year, you're going to commonly see lockout tagout. That'll fluctuate anywhere from 6 to about 4 in recent years. And just in 2025, lockout tagout was the fourth most cited violation from OSHA. So definitely seeing the need for it and making sure that all of our team or our maintenance teams or professionals are going to go home the same way they come into the office, right? Making sure nobody's getting hurt, staying safe while doing it, but then also getting all of our machinery back up and running as quickly as possible. I'm going to throw a poll question up here. Oh, there's none in here. They were not loaded. All right, so we had a couple of polls that we had, but they did not get loaded properly, so we're gonna skip over those today. So in that previous poll, what it was asking was just if you would take a step back and think about how long a piece of machinery may be down for, or how those different citations come into play, somebody getting hurt, workman's comp, all of that stuff. If you had one outage, one fatality, one non-fatal injury, or something just as simple as getting a cut where we have to log it, those different actions can really vary as far as the cost on the total cost of the company. So that can range from roughly $25,000 all the way up to $1.5 million. And again, that's not just the citation. Also think of it as, if something's not running from a business standpoint, how much money are we eventually losing? So making sure that we're staying as efficient as possible and as safe as possible as we're going through it. Some common challenges we see within safety programs as we're going out talking to customers is the inconsistencies between procedures, how we're ultimately going to be managing them, whether that's going to be starting a new procedure each time that we go out and have to work on something, or are we starting to use something like a Word document, Excel document? Then how do we manage that and make sure we also have the latest version? So kind of starting to get into that software aspect, but still having some inconsistencies on Ben downloaded it to his computer and he made some updates, but never put it into a shared drive, making it inefficient for me to then go and find the next one. Another thing that we do see is just the downtime, or how much time is spent trying to get to that correct procedure, making sure that our teams have it available to us when we need it. So going into building a program then, what effectively makes it a good program? And this is some of our best practices that we have, along with what is stated throughout OSHA. So as we go into building out that actual policy, some important things you want to look at is, making it in a way that everybody can understand it, making it very visual, making sure that we're training our staff the same as we get new hires coming on board, but also taking a step back and looking at it from the 1,000-foot view. So as you're looking at it, one thing you want to keep in mind is it's not going to be company or site specific, but also you want to make sure that it's aligned with your operational practices. So if you guys are a completely different facility than one of your sites across in a different state, make it unique to your guys' own facility, and think of it something like a fingerprint, right? It's never going to be a cookie cutter. Also want to make sure that we have all of our different requirements. Maybe we're a little more elaborate than OSHA, but making sure all of that's going to be inside of our written program, making it very specific to our site. Looking into effective program creation then, some things that you might have that vary site to site or company to company is going to be group lockout, different color schemes for your different locks, whether that's going to be your maintenance team potentially getting a red lock, your equipment locks could be a set of blue locks, maybe your supervisor has a yellow or gold lock, but all those different things play into how you want to customize your program to fit your guys' needs. Also, what happens when you have a shift change? Do I just hand off the paper sheet, or make sure that we're using a group lockbox and I am taking my lock off, giving it to control to the next supervisor? And then ultimately, do we have any contractors that come in and out of the facility? This could be anything from you get new contractors weekly to come in and service something, or they're going to be on site day to day. Do those individuals ultimately need access to the same information, the same lockout procedures as the maintenance team that may be locking something out? And then alluding back to what we were just covering, but some common failures that we see is oftentimes some companies try to make it too generic, meaning that they're not going to have a consistent format that's going from procedure to procedure, but also not keeping them up to date or having that most up to date one available to us at a given time. The big thing that really goes a long ways within making that actual program is going to be having your team engaged and having a say in developing that actual program, giving them some skin in the game. So if they're helping you, giving feedback on what's not working, what ultimately is working really well, let's listen to them and make sure that it's going into the program itself and making it easy for them to follow. And then just some best practices. So as I just mentioned, you want to make sure your team is involved, making it something where they feel they had a say in what is actually being done and that it's being heard all the way up. Ultimately, making sure that we're keeping everybody safe while working on something. And then reviewing annually, making sure everything's going to be up to date. Now, this applies not only to the procedures themselves, but also this written program. So if you guys have potentially a new manager come in, anything that we need to do to help evolve the program and keeping that up to date, could also be just understanding and training annually to say, okay, everybody, let's go out, review this, make sure it still makes sense. But all that goes into making sure that our workforce is still going to be following that as we progress and start building out, maturing our lockout program then. And then once again, you may not have different lock colors at the beginning, but definitely something that can evolve as you start getting more mature. Now you want to see what different equipment locks may look like, or individual locks, having those color coded, trying it out, trying new things, and making sure that we're always looking for the next step to keep our team safe out in the workforce. Step 2 is creating those machine-specific procedures. So in doing this, and a little summary from OSHA would be: procedures shall be developed, documented, and utilized for the control of potentially hazardous energy. Making sure that everything is going to be easily laid out for us as we're going through those procedures. Step 1, going to do your electrical. Step 2, maybe valve 1. Step 3 is valve 2. Having all that laid out and the data in there, the information in there to properly lock something out so we can ultimately perform that maintenance and then bring it back online is going to be crucial. So we want these to be machine specific, and then also anything going back to our operational practices. Do we have to inform all of people that are potentially in the affected area that there's a shutdown? All of this is information that can make our procedures as informational as possible as we want to roll it out to our team then. And then as we look at how we're managing those procedures, again, we can have those stored in a shared drive, can write them out each individually each time we do it. Excel or Word, all of that is available to us. But then making sure that we have some of the required fields from OSHA, and then as the best practices that we see on here, just allude to what we've seen at Brady. So some of the key information we want to do is make sure that it's as easily identifiable and what we're going to be working on and where it's located. So there we have step 3 is the facility name, location, equipment name, but then also having all the related information on the energy source and magnitudes to make sure that it's laid out. Everybody who's going to be working on this particular piece of machinery is going to be well informed on the potential risks that are associated with it, all the way to some standard verbiage pulled out to say this is what we're going to do to lock it out. So on the right hand side, you can see the shutdown, lock, tag, and test sequence. So that's notifying different employees, making sure everything has come to a complete stop. Maybe if a valve has to be released, all the pressure has been released there, but then also how to restore it. So going through basically in reverse order, bringing it back online and the steps to make sure we're doing that properly. Some of the key things we've noticed at Brady that companies really like is going to be looking just at on the left image. It has 4 lockout points, knowing what devices are going to be used for that particular lockout, and then also trying to make it as visual as possible. As we can see with those images there, calling out different electrical disconnects, valves, whatever it might be that's associated with the given lockout, having those called out, making it easy for our team to go through and see it visually, but also thinking of it from the famous line of a picture's worth 1,000 words, making it very visual, easy to follow, and then the steps also provide more information on that. As we start getting into having those procedures built out, making sure that our team knows that they're at the correct valve. So here are just a few examples. We can be as simple as having your E1, W1, C1, S1 out there on the individual isolation points, or we could get into a little more forward thinking if we're using mobile on the floor, having something like QR codes, RFID, all of that could become scannable, helping our team know that they're at the correct thing. So as we're going through building those procedures, we want to make sure we call out any type of energy source that we may be dealing with. So electrical, pneumatic, water, hydraulic, a lot of commonalities between facility to facility, but these are some of the common ones we see as we're going out assisting customers and writing their actual lockout procedures. So kind of to bring that all back in circle here before we get into some of these software enhancements, you want to just keep in the back of your mind that programs are not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You may have some stuff in place already, maybe we have to get to the next step, but some of the key things that we want to do is make sure that we have on the procedures your purpose and scope, how the steps are, the magnitudes, and then also making sure that our staff is going to be properly trained. All the procedures are readily available to our customers at a given time. And then also the lockout devices that are going to be used. So making sure a piece of machinery cannot be re-energized as we are going out, performing the lockout, a lock doesn't fall off or a device doesn't fall off, making sure we have the correct sizes of different valve covers to keep our team safe then. So how does software help in the actual lockout program? There's a lot of different ways that software can assist, whether that's having a desktop platform, mobile platform, but getting into it, we're going to start from the user's perspective and kind of go through all the way to how mobile can start being used out in the facility. So from the mobile perspective, or from the user's perspective, you can go in, set up individual users, and that will allow the software program to not only restrict what a user can do or how they can, what actions they have available to them throughout the software, but also you can limit potentially how many different sites or areas that they can modify themselves. So if we looked at Brady and thought of it from our headquarters in Milwaukee, we have a Good Hope facility and another one called Camden. Now I could be in there and I could have organizational view rights, but I can only edit the procedures for one of those because that's where I work on my day-to-day. Those settings become easy to program within each user's profile, but making it very, restricted if we wanted to on what they can do and have that tracked throughout the system. Another thing is having a central location built. Now you could say we also have this in a SharePoint or a Google Drive or something like that. But then you also have to make sure that the user has proper permissions once they get inside of that. Here we just add it to the software platform, and you can start breaking it up based on very similar to your computer directory on your computer. So having your different folders, could think of it as your site area and equipment. So as you start filtering down further, you can also see all the procedures, confined space, maintenance procedures that are related to that piece of equipment, making sure that our team has it readily available if we have to print it out. If we want to get a checklist, can we print that out so we can ultimately perform maintenance on a given piece of equipment when we need to. Having all these procedures readily available to us, so as we discussed earlier, we thought about the contractors, and if you have them coming in and out, that may be hard in order for us to keep track of them or manage them within the system. Now on the screen, you see a QR code. So if you scan that, it'll actually take you to a procedure. So this could be an easily, readily available document that's always going to be the latest and greatest version. But if you scan that, it'll pull up the procedure, making it available to our team and allow them to go through the steps that they need to. And then on the right-hand side, you also have an image of the mobile platform. So we're all used to those mobile apps, using them day in and day out. But if you know that your facility has limited internet access in particular areas, you could download all that information to your device, work offline, and then once you get back to internet connection, sync that data up so that it can then be viewed back in the website, making it, eliminate some of that paper trail. Now we don't have to worry about a 4-page procedure and we only got 2 or 3 of those pages back. All that's going to be streamlined and made available to us once the lockout is completed then. Now, from the employee turnover perspective, we can't necessarily help employees coming and going from the company, but what we can help with is making sure that if everything is properly labeled, bringing some of those smarts right to your team as they're performing the lockout. So again, alluding back to those isolation points that were hanging at the individual valves or disconnects on the left, having that QR code allows us to go out in the field, similar to the one that took us to a procedure. This will validate that we're at the correct isolation point. So we're all used to seeing them, but in the middle picture, if you wanted to, it would identify all the different isolation points. Maybe you walk into a motor control room and you walk up to a disconnect panel and you have 5 or 6 that are within range of just the cameras. It'll tell you which ones are available to you and show you the procedures that are related to it. But then also on the right-hand side, as we're going through a particular lockout, you can get validation, so either a red box or a green box indicating that I'm either at the correct one or the incorrect one. So now it doesn't matter if you have a lot of tribal knowledge at your facility and either someone's off or someone had retired, a new person comes in, even if they only have 2 weeks on the job, you could still have them use a mobile device if it's allowed on the floor, and then validate that I'm at the correct isolation point. So they are going through step by step and getting that validation, but then also having that built-in timestamp as we're confirming that we're locking out and placing the correct device on that particular isolation point. And then management of change. This is probably where most of the efficiency is going to come in from a software platform. Just having the ability, I know I've gone in and I've tried to, format some things in Microsoft or in Excel, then you got to readjust a bunch of different columns to potentially add a picture. But having a package that will help you go in, annotate your images, modify them if you needed to, but also seamlessly update everything that's related to a procedure just by updating one piece of that puzzle, right? So on the bottom, kind of think of it as a spider web or a puzzle, and I have all my isolation points, pieces of equipment. Also see if an isolation point is potentially on 2 pieces of equipment, or a valve could basically feed into 2 pumps potentially. How does that affect other people at the facility? And making sure that information is brought right to them rather than having to look for it. And then again, getting to that visual document that we want to have out in the facility, making it very visual for our team. Once again, picture's worth 1,000 words. Being able to call out the right disconnect. It may be a little small, but you can see in that top image that there's a red arrow pointing to one, and then also in the bottom one there's a label there as well. But having that same look and feel, keeping it consistent across your whole company is going to make sure that the program is easily repeatable and going from one area to another area. If somebody has to bounce around, all that information is available to them. They're walking through the procedure the same way every time they're going to be working on a piece of equipment then. And then getting into the compliance aspect, so making sure that our files are going to be reviewed annually, not needing to go out and search when the last time a file was potentially modified, but having that data start being brought to you. So here we can see an example of any audits that are due within 30 days. And now we know we have to go and review those, make any changes if needed. Going from a facility to facility, you're going to eventually have potentially a piece of equipment that moves around. Let's make sure that that procedure is updated as well. So either looking at it when something moves, when something changes, or just having that set interval, knowing that we have to review those to stay OSHA compliant, and all of that coming to us rather than having to go out and search for it. And then ongoing maintenance. So really getting that overview of what the facility has ongoing at a given time. Thinking back to some of those earlier slides and how long or how many dollars we're eventually or could potentially lose if something is not running. So get visibility into what is online and offline, those live notifications, so we can see that one of these lockouts are halfway or 25% the way done and when it started. And then we can also see how long something's been shut down. So in that bottom row, seeing that our procedure has been locked out for almost a whole month can start raising some questions on, are we actually waiting on a piece of equipment to fix something, or do we just not start it back up? But now we have that visibility, ultimately preventing our downtimes and keeping it as short as possible. All right, so then a quick video before questions here on just what we're doing at Brady.
In complex process industries, breakdowns are not if, they're when. And the longer it takes to solve them is when money starts flying out the door. Lockout tagout is a constant battle. Building procedures using a maze of one-line drawings, P&IDs, and outdated spreadsheets. The pressure to keep things running collides with safety, and traditional lockout software can't keep up. So outsmart complexity and outpace downtime with Link 360 Process Plus from Brady. Dynamic lockout procedure management for process industries. Process Plus ends spreadsheet chaos, replacing it with centralized control. One dynamic database and one source of truth for isolation points, equipment, even regulatory compliance. When you experience a breakdown, this system gets you from planning to procedure faster. That's because it uses an isolation point first approach. Using the visual interface, simply drag and drop isolation points and create a procedure with just a few clicks. Photos, hazard information, all auto-populate, allowing your team to target only essential isolation points for the fastest, safest shutdowns. Process Plus is a living, breathing database, helping you automate change management. As your process or equipment changes, updates cascade through the system, ensuring every worker has only the latest information. You get real-time visibility of your equipment status and procedure history. Plus, mobile technology helps you do your work right at the isolation point. And Process Plus integrates with Brady label printers and software platforms, enabling visual confirmation of isolation points and trackable, traceable lockout documentation. Outsmart complexity and outpace downtime with Link 360 Process Plus. Reach out to Brady to learn more.
All right, well, thank you, Tony. If you have questions, like we said at the beginning, feel free to put those into the chat. We will have some time here at the end to go through questions coming through the chat. And while you type those in, we're just going to take a look ahead at the upcoming webinars in the series. So up next in December is going to be optimizing your workplace with strategic area markings. That's going to be December 17th. After the new year, the first one of 2026 will be preventing OSHA citations with equipment inspection best practices. And then there's a typo on the screen for February. So data center safety planning from construction, that's going to be February 25th. It'll always be at 2 o'clock Central Time, as it always is. So plan ahead, and we look forward to seeing you there. So with that, I'll turn it back to Tony, who has a resource to get you a little bit more information while the questions continue to come in here.
Yeah, so if you're interested to hear more about Brady's software offerings, feel free to scan this QR code here. It'll take you to our site where there's a lot more information, but you can also schedule a demo. So as we get close to wrapping up here, I think Ben has a few questions, and if you have any other ones, please put them into the chat and we will address them then.
All right. Yeah, so Tony, the first question we got here is, you've mentioned two softwares, Link 360, Process Plus. What's the difference between the two, or why is there two? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we came out with Process Plus about a year and a half ago, and the big thing that we were realizing within some particular industries is that they have a lot of reused isolation points or energy sources amongst different procedures. So if you find that as a common scenario at your facility, Process Plus may be a great option for you. And then if you have a lot of pumps or simple equipment that aren't going to share those isolation points or energy sources on multiple procedures, Link 360 is a great fit. So really, depending on your facility's needs, we should have a solution that would help you in that regard.
All right, fantastic. Another question that had come through earlier was, will this recording be sent out? I don't believe it gets sent out to all the attendees, but it will be available on the Brady YouTube page. So I did reply all to that question. Hopefully everybody was able to see it, but for those who's not, it's youtube.com/user/Brady North America. So you can find this recording and every other webinar we've done in the series available there. All right, another question. And we get this question a lot. Is the QR sticker label acceptable as a posted procedure by OSHA? Do you want to take that? You want me to take it, Tony?
You wanna?
Yeah, so the lockout procedure needs to be available to the employees, and the employees need to know where to access it. So as long as smart devices are either assigned or allowable for employees to use, you know, they need to have some sort of device to be able to access that procedure when using a QR label. But, you know, if they're assigned devices or they're allowed to use their own personal devices, those procedures would be considered available, as long as, again, tying it back to that written program, everybody knows that that's how you would access that procedure. So the big thing from OSHA is employees need to know how to access those procedures, what the expectations are, basically understanding their program. You know, the great thing about those QR labels is that they are very available to the person who's going to need them. They're right at the point of use. It's always showing you the latest published version of it. So as long as they have the means to scan it and pull up the procedure, that would be acceptable. All right, another question I'll send your way, Tony. Is this available in other languages? If so, is there an additional cost per language? How does that work?
Yeah, so within Link 360, we have 19 supported languages, and that's just all nested into your annual subscription. So that comes with unlimited users, and if you have a facility that needs English and Spanish, or if you are overseas and you need a French or a Dutch version, we do have 19 different languages. And then in Process Plus, it's currently only available in English, but we do plan on rolling out language support just like we have in Link 360. So we'll probably follow the languages by default, meaning 19 of them would be available to us once we complete that work. But that is a newer platform, and we're continuing to mature that and adding more functionality every day with our development team then.
All right, pull up another question here. So for facilities with a high turnover rate, what specific challenges does manual lockout pose for new employee training and competency verification?
Yeah, so as you have if you have a facility with higher turnover, think of it as they can still go through the new hire training. And that might be done different from me presenting it or training someone to going to Ben to present it and train someone. Ultimately, we want to make sure that if the procedures are located somewhere, they can easily find them. And that's really where these software platforms come into play. Also, if you have a lockout program, and we've been at a few facilities like this, but if they're writing a new procedure, walking down, writing a new procedure each time they have to lock it out, now we have a lot more training to do. It's a lot more manual, and being able to have that expertise in identifying the correct isolation points rather than having them readily available. Sure, we might get a new piece of equipment and have to build a procedure for it, but if 95% of our facility already has a procedure, it makes it easy for our newer employees to stay safe and follow a standardized document then.
All right, great. Going through these, looks like there's maybe one more.
One more, all right.
All right, so yeah, here we go. What is a realistic time frame for an organization to start seeing measurable reductions in procedure creation or compliance errors after implementing a software?
Yeah, so we'll kind of break that one into two questions. And so the first one is, what's a realistic time frame? And that's going to vary company to company. So we run into scenarios where a company is going to do all the work themselves, build those procedures, or they already have some that are existing, and they just want to get it into the software so it can now easily be managed, or potentially want to add pictures to it as well. All of that is going to be a lot faster than if you don't have the bandwidth, or if we think we have the bandwidth and all of a sudden, maybe we need to get additional help. Again, that's where, as Ben mentioned at the top of the call, we do have a team that can come out and help write those procedures, but depending on how far out we're scheduling, that definitely comes into play. So really a variety of options for the timeline there. And then what was the second part of that question, Ben?
The second part of that question was, go back and
getting back into compliance after implementation. So going through and using the softwares as they're laid out, it covers a lot of those required fields that we've seen on the procedure itself. So when I was going through and there were 12 different steps, some were best practices, others were required there. The required ones are also going to be required fields within the different software platforms. So for example, if you're adding an isolation point, you're going to have to say what type of energy you're dealing with, the magnitude, and then a best practice, for instance, might be having it individually labeled or tagged properly. So all of that is going to be required step by step as you're building these procedures and adding different pieces to the procedure, making sure that all the information is there for our team to follow then.
Awesome. Had another one come through here, Tony, from Caleb. Is there a place to find a quote for the software, or is that dependent on the project size? And is there a time frame where everything is developed? So it's, I know, kind of a two-part answer, and we can tag team this one if we want to here, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I'll address it from the software side of things, and then Ben can talk a little bit about the services side. But from the software side, really, if you, let's say we scan this, you request a demo, our experts will go in really learn about your facility and how big it is. And then that's essentially how the software quotes are going to be generated. Really, it's more of a per document standpoint than a per user. So as you start growing within Link, you will also see some price cuts as you get to different tiers. But to ultimately get a quote for your facility, reach out to our experts, request a demo, make sure that it's something that you guys are interested in, and then we can give you a more formal estimate on how much that will cost annually.
Awesome. And then to the second part of that question, I can speak to from our services capabilities. So yeah, scan that QR, request that demo, and like Tony said, we'll help get you underway in terms of getting a quote on the software from the services side. And that's where, for folks that not only want the software, but need the help implementing, don't have the time, the resources, the people to get those procedures created. That's what my team does. We write 50, 60, 70,000 lockout procedures a year in Link 360 or Process Plus. We can, on average, do anywhere from 50 to 70 procedures per week. So the time frame would really depend on the number of procedures you need, the type of deliverables you go with, whether it's a printed and laminated one or just loading it into the software or creating the QR labels and installing it on the equipment. So it is very much a custom quote that would depend on the project size. But we would certainly be able to work with you and help define that scope of work and get a proposal in your hand. If you have equipment lists, that can certainly fast track getting a quote on our side, because we can sort through it and try to put a number on how many procedures you'd actually need if you didn't know. All right, I don't know that we have any more questions. And I think we got about 2 minutes left here, so we'll do a quick last call. If you have a question, now's the time, fire it off. But if not, I think we can kind of wrap this thing up. Did you have any other slides to show here, Tony?
Nope, that was it. Thank you everyone for your time today. Hope you all have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving, and we look forward to talking to you in December then.